Hello, welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be talking about the difference between Path of Exile and Diablo 4. And I really want to start off with cooldowns and why they're really important and why they're game changing and how Diablo 4 failed us with cooldowns. So as you can see here on the left hand side is Path of Exile. Pretty much no cooldowns, you're just reliant on your mana and pots. And on the right hand side is Diablo 4, where you are reliant on cooldowns and as well mana. So every ability pretty much in Diablo 4 has cooldowns except basic attack, and your core skill has no cooldown, but it's based on mana. So the cooldown times vary from a few seconds to a lot. Like Grizzly Rage, for example, at base is like 40 plus seconds or something. So I mean, if you look here, you can see on the top is Diablo 4, and the cooldowns are really long, and it makes the game not fun. It makes it actually kind of boring when I can't use my abilities just whenever I want pretty much. And Path of Exile, they don't restrict you like that. You just literally just keep blasting, and as long as you have mana pots and things like that, or you reserve mana, you can literally just spam your abilities as long as you don't die, right? So I mean, cooldowns are pretty much to slow us down, I think. And PoE just doesn't have that punishing effect I feel like Diablo has, and that's a big difference, and it's a yikes. So I feel like cooldowns are one of the biggest issues in Diablo 4. So, and then they went and nerfed cooldown. They nerfed the stat, they nerfed how it works and all that stuff. So it's just really bad. All right, so we got cooldowns covered. Let's move on to number 2, which is a major difference between Diablo and Path of Exile, and that is monster scaling progression. So the way this works is when you level up, every time you level up in Diablo, the monsters in the entire world level up with you and become more difficult. In Path of Exile, it doesn't really do that. They do scale with you, but it's not as horrendous as Diablo 4 has done. These young ladies are literally dying in World Tier 1, which is the easiest world tier. It's supposed to be the easiest difficulty in the game, and these two young ladies are just getting obliterated left and right while they're playing. And mind you, they work for Blizzard. So it is World Tier 1. They're literally getting obliterated. The scaling, it's not rewarding. It's actually punishing in Diablo. When you level up in Diablo, it's actually punishing because you would think you'd get stronger, but you don't. And that's a huge issue. In Path of Exile, I feel like I get stronger as I level up. I literally feel stronger. There's no slowing down. There might be a few bosses where you get stuck because of mechanics or something like that, but it's not because of scaling. Scaling in Diablo 4 is the worst thing I've ever seen in a Diablo game. Like, out of all the Diablo games, this is the worst scaling I've ever seen. So maybe they can fix this, address this. I hope that they get rid of this. And I don't know, PoE scaling just feels a lot better, and you can definitely feel the power spikes when you get them in PoE. Diablo, I don't feel like I get power spikes until, like, what? It depends on your class, but most classes I feel like you have to be level 60 to about 80ish, and then you become online, right? So I mean, the scaling is definitely going to be number 2 on my list for the biggest difference between PoE and Diablo 4. All right, and then the third major difference that I've noticed between Diablo 4 and Path of Exile is going to be the stash. Okay, stash space is one of the biggest complaints about Diablo 4. We're limited to the 4 tabs and your character space and then consumable slots. Now you have hearts, gems, items, sigils, consumables. There's a lot of things that you need to store in Diablo, and we just don't have the space for it. It feels like Diablo, each account is meant to have 1 character, maybe 2 at most, and then the rest of your characters are going to be mules to supplement the stash space required to accumulate items for different builds and you know, hearts and stuff like that. So if we go here and look at Path of Exile has an insane amount of tabs. They have currency tabs, they have map tabs, they have all types of different tabs. You can label your tabs, customize your tabs. You can even search your tabs for certain things within your tabs. There is no search feature in the Diablo. We know why, because it's made for console. So you can, like, Path of Exile is uncomparable in stash space to Diablo. Now, mind you, you do have to buy the tabs in Path of Exile, but I'd rather buy the tabs than buy Diablo. So Okay, so that brings us to our next issue. Straight in from the tabs, we're going to go straight to the UI. Okay, this kind of implores with the tabs, but the UI for Diablo 4 was literally made for console. There's no search feature for the stash. There's no, like the UI looks really bad. The items, even the display of the names on the items, the UI for Diablo is very lackluster, and I'm not the only one to say that. Even Woody Joe himself said that. All right, check this out. Listen to what Woody says about the interface and UI real quick.
So we have Diablo 4, and it was developed for 2 platforms at the same time, PC and console, and it shows. So number 1 is the UI. We have so many like console features, so many concessions made to the console version for PC players that it's really outrageous. We have no...
Yeah, and I agree with that. It's literally built for console, and that's I firmly believe, since they built this game from console to PC, they built it for console and then put it on PC. That's what I feel like they did with our game.
Search function in the stash. We have these like clunky large interface, buttons and all that stuff. For example, you can't even see like more than like 6 people or something on your friend list at a time. You have to scroll through so many people to see them. So there's definitely a lot of issues with people being used to certain standards when they play a PC game, that obviously it might work well for console, but it just doesn't work well for PC.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with that. It should not be built for console. It should be built for PC and then optimized to console, not the other way around. They're building the game ass backwards. Okay, let's talk about mob density. That's going to be our next topic, the big difference. And this is one of Diablo 4's biggest flaws, is mob density. So this is Zizarin. He's just doing Act 10 right now. He's just literally running through and killing mobs in Act 10. And as you can see, the mobs are pretty thick here. And this is just an act. This is not even a map or anything. He's just doing the act. So the mobs here are a lot thicker than they are in Diablo 4. And that to me is a big problem. Let's go ahead and look at Diablo 4. Okay, so this is a video I had made on the season best map to farm for items, and let's just go ahead and let it play for a second, and we'll see there is no mobs and a lot of backtracking with just like pointless areas that just don't have anything. And I constantly ask myself, what am I doing? Like, where are the mobs? Like, is this the right way even? And it's a clusterfuck. I don't understand why there are no mobs. It's very lackluster in mobs. And I think this is I think this is actually probably the second worst thing about Diablo 4 is the mob density. Even after the patch, they did add more mobs. It's just still not as satisfying. I hope they increase the mob density even further than they already have. But backtracking and dungeons where there's just no mobs to kill or anything like that is just miserable. You can see here, this is supposed to be the best item farm in the game, and it's just really lackluster. And I don't know, and then let's not even get to the part where I want to talk about diversity. So I want to show you guys something real quick. All right, if you didn't know, there is a list of monster families on the whatever max roll, and we have 16 monster families. Okay, there are 16 total monster families within Diablo. Each family has, I believe, like 2 or 3 sub families. Not too many mob types, right? There's not that many. And it's not good. Now let's look at the PoE mob types. So these are all the mobs types in PoE. It seems a little bit more vast in PoE. There's a lot more, and you don't seem to have to farm the same mob over and 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 over. Okay, so that's going to bring us to our next topic, and another major difference is melee builds. Melee builds in Path of Exile feel pretty smooth, pretty solid. They're not that great, but they're way better. They're like 50 to 100 times better than Diablo 4. Diablo 4 issue with melee is when you get in range of a melee mob, you get hit. If you get in melee range to attack a mob, you will get hit. And you can see that here, my rogue just constantly is getting hit. And then did we mention cooldowns? I think that was the first thing we talked about, right? So yes, melee abilities have cooldowns. They're not really, it's really annoying. And melee is, I feel like Melee and Diablo could be much better if they would have fixed resistances, if you can have shorter cooldowns and or just no cooldowns and have mana based melee abilities and things like that. I just feel like Melee and Diablo 4 really failed us as well, and there's a lot of clunkiness to it, especially on Barbarian. It's not really tick perfect like a RuneScape, where you can, like, every tick counts, and you know, you tick here and you're going there, right? In Diablo, I'll click my Barbarian to like swing that way and he'll just swing north, for example. It's really clunky and trash design, and I feel, again, and that's because of console, and I'm just going to keep blaming console for everything that's wrong with Diablo 4. And I just Melee really needs a life support line within Diablo 4. Okay, now let's talk about something that Diablo actually beat Path of Exile in. Okay, now I have been very critical with Diablo 4, and it's let me down in a lot of places, but the lore in Diablo 4 is uncomparable. The lore behind Diablo 4 is very dense, very thick, very good, and it's entertaining. But with that being said, okay, with that being said, there's still a lot more action in Path of Exile, and that therefore it makes Path of Exile just a funner, overall better experience for me. And but I can't shit on the lore in Diablo. Diablo has really good lore, guys. If you don't know the lore, you can look it up on the wiki and stuff like that. I think Riker might have touched on the lore. If he hasn't, I'll probably make a video about Diablo's lore and just go through that and just make a long detailed thing about the lore. But I do love Diablo lore, guys. I can give them the lore part. They shit on Path of Exile's lore. So I'm not saying Path of Exile doesn't have lore. It does, but it's nothing comparable to Diablo 4 in my opinion. So Diablo 4 did win for the lore category. Okay. All right, that brings us to another point, and a huge difference between Diablo 4 and Path of Exile is crafting. Okay, so let me show you crafting in Diablo 4. You literally put in one item, you can switch one stat on that item, and that's it. And then every time you want to re-roll it, it costs more materials and more gold, and it goes up exponentially every time. I know some people who are over 330 million per roll, and they still haven't gotten the stat they needed because there's 10 billion affixes in Diablo 4 that are absolute dog shit useless. And so that brings crafting to a, like, if I had to compare a rating scale from Diablo 4 to Path of Exile crafting, Diablo would have like a -7 for crafting, where Path of Exile has like a 17 for crafting. Okay, so that's a huge difference. And you can see here, let me just go ahead and pull this up. So crafting basics of crafting, types of mods, base item, item rarity, influences, crafting currency, common crafting methods. Like, there's literally a 40-minute guide video on how to craft items in Path of Exile. My crafting guide for Diablo 4 is 3 minutes long. So you can see the difference just from the video links. And there's advanced crafting where you can like re-roll, add things. There's so many options in crafting and PoE, it's not really comparable to Diablo, and that's a huge yikes. But we did hear the Diablo devs mention that they were planning on adding more types of ways you can edit and alter and craft on your gear. So maybe in time we'll have that, but for right now, Path of Exile is god of crafting. All right, and then the next subject, let's move on. We're going to be talking about builds and skills and things like that. So this is a Barbarian in Diablo 4. This is the skill tree for Barbarian. These are your basic attacks. These are your core abilities, okay? So there's not, if you look here, there's not too many options. It's not really too many options to go on. And there is the Paragon board that does add like stats and buffs and things like that, but it doesn't really affect your overall build. This is what's going to be the basic bread and butter of the builds. And there's not really that many options here. So let's go ahead and look at Path of Exiles. Brace yourself, guys. So yeah, this is the starting point, and you can go any way you want, do pretty much whatever build you want, and I'd say most builds that you pick, even if they're not meta builds, off meta, it doesn't matter. I'm pretty sure you can get through Act 10 with pretty much any build. and just basic ARPG knowledge. So it looks intimidating when you look at this, but it's not intimidating. It's just it opens up so many different unique builds, unique avenues that you can explore and tinker with and see what the actual best is. And it's just, there's a lot more optimization within Path of Exile's builds. So I mean, for builds, PoE gets like an 8, okay, maybe a 9, and Diablo 4 it gets probably like a 4 or a 3. Okay. All right, and then there is some other honorable mentions within Diablo, and that's going to be the Battle Pass. Diablo is a AAA game sold for, I think it's like minimum $70, right? And then it goes all the way up to like 100 something. So there's a Battle Pass that you also have to buy if you want things like bonus XP and stuff like that. And I don't think you should have to purchase the Battle Pass or any of this. Since we already bought the game. Now, if they want to sell us an expansion or something like that, that's fine. But I don't think there should be a battle pass in Diablo. It's very cringe. Sell us more stash space, sell us cosmetics, sell us mount cosmetics, things like that. But don't sell us a battle pass. I want to be able to earn everything in Diablo. I want it all earnable. Now, skins and things like that, I don't give a shit about. But if it's XP or it affects my gameplay, I want to be able to earn that while just playing the game, okay? I don't want to have to buy it with an extra purchase. Okay, and then the other and last thing I want to mention that's very, very cringe that Diablo has that PoE will never have is mounts, okay? Mounts are literally trash, period. That's it. There's no argument need to be made. Nobody likes the mounts. It's literally dog shit. I don't know, make travel speed and open world faster and just get rid of mounts. Mounts are horrendous. They're clunky, unresponsive. It's literally worse than melee. Terrible idea. Whoever added mounts, I don't know, man. Let's get rid of the mounts. But yeah, that's going to be it. That's it. I just wanted to compare the difference between Path of Exile and Diablo 4. So you can see right here, 23,000.6 current viewers. And Diablo has only 1.9k, so that's pretty cringe. And then the other thing is 630k to 2.9. So I mean, what do you guys think? Which ARPG do you guys think's better? Do you think they'll ever recover from Diablo 4's shenanigans? And let us know in the comments below, and I'll catch you on the next video. Peace.